while sheltering in place. And then just some general tips for surviving the financial hardships that you may be experiencing because of this COVID-19 epidemic and all the new restrictions that we have had placed on us. So just some quick statistics. Almost 1 in 5 Americans, and this actually, the 1 in 5 is probably a little outdated. Things are changing so quickly that it's hard to keep all the statistics and all the information current. But almost 1 in 5 Americans have already lost their jobs or have reduced hours. And just last week, we had a record 6.6 million people apply for unemployment. Only about 40% or less than 40% actually of Americans can afford an unexpected $1,000 expense that would be available through their savings. So most people are living paycheck to paycheck, even so-called higher income people. So a quarter of households making $150,000 or above are living paycheck to paycheck. So if you're experiencing problems during this period, you're not alone. And I think that's one of the important things to remember is you're not alone. Everybody is in this together. In fact, my husband's not getting a paycheck right now, and I don't know when he'll start to get his paycheck again. But he is a physician, and none of the physicians in his group are taking paychecks because they want to be able to continue to pay their employees. And the number of patients that they're seeing has declined drastically. So they don't have the money coming in any longer. So they've got to conserve what they have so that they can continue to pay their employees. So everybody's in this together. What can you do now? So that's the main thing. What steps can you do right now to make it easier on yourselves and also to increase the probability that you're going to be able to weather this storm? So the best thing you can do is have a budget. So budget's a forecast of inflows, which includes salary, wages, and other sources of income, and then also outflows, which are your expenses. So if you don't have a budget, you should create one. And the way you would do that would be to gather all the information on your expenses so that you have an idea of what your outflows are. You can pull out that data from bank statements, from online bill statements, paper statements, credit card statements, any sort of data that you have on your outflows. And then on inflows, of course, look for your pay stubs, look at bank statements to determine inflows. You're either depositing your paychecks or they're automatically deposited to your bank account. So your bank statements will reflect that. And then review your budget. So look for expenses which you can reduce or eliminate right now. So we're going to talk a little bit about car insurance later, so I won't go into that in detail right now, but you may find that some of your expenses have already been reduced just because you're not driving as much. So gas might be an expense that's been reduced. If you had a job where you had to look professional, you may not have dry cleaning expenses. I'm sitting here right now, and you see me sitting in basically a plain black top, but I've got running shorts on underneath that. And so, I'm saving a lot with dry cleaning expenses and just those types of general things. Gym memberships. Nobody can go to the gym anymore because the gyms are all closed. So I know my daughter suspended her Orange Theory membership. And she's out, running instead of going to the gym. Here personally, my son, I have 2 sons that are home, and they had HBO in their apartments. I've got HBO here, so they've suspended their HBO and their Netflix because we can all use one account. So look for other types of expenses which may have already been reduced or eliminated, and those are dollars that you can place somewhere else. So the other thing you have to do is look for expenses which may have been increased. I have had a couple of students in classes where they've had childcare expenses increase because they're employed. they're employed by retailers, and so they're working more hours instead of less hours. They're kind of in a unique situation. They haven't lost their job. They've got more hours. They've got more things to juggle, and so some expenses have increased for them. You might find food and utilities have also increased. Food, because some food prices have increased, and then utilities, we're all staying home more, so that means we're using more electricity. So some of your expenses may have increased, and if you can identify those that have decreased, then you've got some dollars that you can move around. The important thing is you'd want to try to spend less than you earn. If you're spending more than you earn, you're going to have to get those additional dollars from somewhere else. If you don't have the savings, then you're going to be pulling out a credit card. And during a period where your hours may be cut back for work, or maybe you've lost your job completely, um, maintaining a balance between your outflows and your inflows becomes more difficult. So what help is available now? There was an act that was passed. It's called the CARES Act, and you've probably heard of it. All U.S. residents with adjusted gross income up to $75,000 are going to receive a check for $1,200. So if you're married, you're going to get a check for $2,400. And then there's an additional $500 for every child under the age of 17. So that's a payment that's going to go to all Americans that qualify. If you filed your income taxes last year and the checks were automatic, your refund was automatically deposited into your bank account, that check's going to turn up automatically. If you didn't use automatic deposit, I have some links at the end of the presentation that give more detailed information about all the things I'm going to be discussing. And so you will need to let the government know where they can find you, and they'll mail you a check. So providing them with your current address will be important. There's no minimum income requirement for this payment. So even individuals who have very low income, if you didn't file a tax return last year because you didn't have income, then that's an instance where you're going to need to let the federal government know your address. But individuals with no income, or as long as they're not dependent on another taxpayer's tax return, they are eligible to receive this. The amount is going to be reduced by $5 for every $100 over the income limit. So it's fully phased out for people with incomes over $99,000 or $198,000 for joint filers. So that's important because it's immediate assistance, and $1,200 per person, $2,400 for a married couple is significant, especially when you're trying really hard to make ends meet. So the next one is increased unemployment insurance. So unemployment insurance is going to expand. It provides for an additional $600 a week payment to each recipient of unemployment for up to 4 months, and then an additional 13 weeks through December 31st once state unemployment benefits are no longer available. So I've got a link down here with specific information for college students, because for college students whose work-study programs have been interrupted, colleges and universities are going to be able to continue to pay those students. So Lori may have some additional information on that, but there is this link where college students specifically can get information that's just for them. Income taxes are also going to be delayed. So now you have up to July 15th to file your income tax return. However, if you expect to get a refund, then you probably want to file your return as soon as possible. So if you haven't already done that and you're going to get a refund, then don't wait till July. You want to get that refund in your pocket right away. The other significant thing is if you have an IRA or you have some sort of uh, retirement account, the Treasury Department's also postponing the deadline for making contributions to your IRA until the date you file your income tax return. So that's up to July 15th of 2020. So another significant benefit. Um, Here are three more. So mortgage relief for homeowners. If you have a federally backed mortgage, then the lenders are required to postpone your mortgage payments at the request of the borrower. So that's really important. You have to request of your lender to provide you with that, with the postponement of your mortgage payments. So these require that you make that request. Some of the benefits that the government has created do not require a request, but mortgage relief for homeowners does. There's also a foreclosure moratorium, and that means that lenders are going to be prevented from starting a foreclosure process for at least 60 days beginning March 18th. So that's out to May. So until the middle of May, there's a foreclosure moratorium. There's also eviction relief for renters. So this is both federal and state. So what the federal requirement is, for 120 days after the CARES Act, landlords with mortgages backed by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So these are just particular mortgages that this would apply to, or particular types of renters that this would apply to. But in California, the law is extended to virtually every landlord. So all landlords have to give 120 days of relief. So that's really important because many of our students are renters. Landlords also can't charge any fees or penalties related to the non-payment of rent. However, you do have to contact your landlord within 7 days of your rent payment being due. So if your rent's due on the 1st, you'd have to contact them by the 7th and let them know that you have a financial hardship related to the COVID virus, and they are obligated to defer your rent. So so just make sure you meet the requirements of that law, and you notify your landlord within 7 days of the due date of your rent. Student loans. So there's loan payment suspension for student loan payments. Suspends payments automatically for federal student loans through September 30th, 2020. So that's quite substantial. No interest will accrue or penalties will accrue during that period of suspension for certain student loans. So this doesn't apply to all student loans. It is, I think, most student loans. But down here, I have also included a link where you can check, where you can get detailed information about how to check whether your loan is included in that. There's some additional provisions. Let's see, a variety of other emergency related or emergency relief provisions related to students. And right at this link, you can also find out more information about the payments that colleges and universities can continue to make for the work-study students. So there are also some additional relief provided by private lenders. So this would be with regard to auto loans. So this would be General Motors, banks, Ford Motor Credit, Nissan. All of the major car companies have lenders attached to them. In addition, you may have received an auto loan through a bank. There's lots of forgiveness here, lots of forbearance in this area. So a deferment is an agreement between you and the lender that allows you to skip some payments. Now, the thing is that even though you may have been given permission to skip some payments, typically there's still going to be interest that's accruing. So that means you're going to pay more interest by the time you pay off the loan. And your loan period is going to be extended. So if you previously had a 3-year loan, 36-month loan, Now you may have a 40-month loan. So overall, it means you're going to pay more to borrow the money, but you will be able to get a deferment on at least 3 or 4 months worth of payments, so that if you are having difficulty making that payment, or you have a better use for that money, because you have you're in a position where you're kind of crunched for money, then it's not a bad idea to ask your the auto lender, to if you can skip some payments. In the long run, it'll cost you a little more, but in the short run, it gives you a lot more flexibility. Now, if you can continue to make all these payments, that's the best thing to do, because generally when you are given a deferment, like I said, the interest typically continues to accrue during the deferral period. So that does mean you'll pay more in the end. So if you can afford to make the payments, do it. Don't take the deferral just because it's available. So will the deferral hurt your credit? The answer is no. If your lender agrees to give you a deferral, then it's not going to hurt your credit at all. But make sure the lender approves the loan before you stop making payments. So don't stop making payments until you've contacted your lender. You'll have to contact your lender in order to get that deferral. So look at the statement. Look at your lender sends you something automatically every month. Look at the information on the statements that you have, as to the number you need to call to start this deferral process. You can also go online. Virtually all of them have an online portal for asking for this deferral. How long can you defer car loans? It depends on who the lender is. It ranges from 30 days up to 120 days for most of the lenders that I looked at. Retirement accounts. Now, we're talking to a student group here, but you may have parents or grandparents that have retirement accounts, and there have been restrictions on retirement accounts as well. So they've eliminated the early withdrawal penalty. People can withdraw from their retirement accounts to try to make ends meet. They increased the retirement loan amount from $50,000 to $100,000 for 2020. And then there's a temporary waiver of the required minimum distribution. Because the stock market has declined so dramatically in such a short period of time, it means that most people's retirement accounts have also shrunk. So if they don't need to take a distribution this year, if they don't need money from their retirement account to help them make ends meet, then they don't have to take that required minimum distribution. So if you have somebody in your family who is either retired or has a retirement account, a 401k or an IRA, you might share this information with them. So working with banks and lenders. So if you've got a credit card that you're having difficulty making payments on, or you've got a car loan or a mortgage, the thing that applies to all of those lenders is you have to contact them. Just don't stop making the payments. Before you stop making payments, or before you cut back on payments, contact your lender. Right now, we're in kind of a unique situation. Banks and finance companies are in a much better position than they were in 2008. The Federal Reserve has also eased a lot of restrictions. They're making money available to financial institutions, and so financial institutions are just not in the position, that the weak position that they were in 2008 when things were really, really bad. So financial institutions are willing to work with people now. They're being encouraged by the Federal Reserve Bank and by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation to work with their customers to ease the burden on customers during this shelter in place. So contact your banks. If you're having difficulty with your credit cards, contact the credit card issuing bank and find out what sort of programs they have in existence. Most lenders, most banks, most credit cards have have added online information to their websites regarding the programs they have available for during this shelter in place. So go to the website and see if you can find the information there. Um, Make a plan. Have a plan in place when you call your lender to ask them to either put off payments, or maybe in the case of credit cards, you can make the minimum payment, but you might have a 30% interest rate. Well, if you're only making the minimum payment and you've got a big interest rate, you're really going to be accruing a lot of extra cost while you're just making that minimum payment. So ask your lender if they'll reduce the interest rate on the balance. Um, Ask them if they will eliminate fees for you. Um, so before you do anything with not making a payment or reducing a payment, find out about the consequences of either suspending payments or reducing your payments. Find out about those consequences, and always ask for a reduction in interest charges, especially if you're going to be leaving a balance on your credit card. The other thing you want to do is try not to use your credit card during this period, especially if you are reducing your payments. You're going to accrue interest. And so if you can keep the balance on your credit card from growing, then you'll be paying less interest in the long run. But always contact your financial institution. This goes for, this period of time or any other period of time where you have difficulty making payments. Always contact the financial institution and let them know what the problem is. Let them know how long you expect to be in that position, and when you'll be able to pay that. They'll continue making credit card payments or continue making your loan payments. Communication is the key. So here are some random tips. If you are staying at home, and let's say you've moved in with parents, or you've moved in with a friend, or for some reason you're just not driving your car. If you can literally not drive your car at all, then you can back off on your automobile insurance. My son, for instance, is now here. He was living in Chicago. His car is back in Chicago. So obviously he's not driving it. He called his insurance company and asked them to remove all but the comprehensive coverage. The comprehensive coverage on your automobile insurance covers fire, theft, vandalism, and other types of losses that might occur from perils like that, from things that happen, that are similar to that. So he kept the comprehensive on there. He removed the collision because he's not driving it, and he removed the liability insurance because he's not driving the car. Now, the important thing to remember is once you start driving that car again, you've got to put that coverage back on. California and most states have financial responsibility laws. So if you remove the liability coverage from your automobile insurance, but you don't put it back on, you're going to be driving in violation of those financial responsibility laws. So it's a great idea, if you can, to just reduce your automobile insurance to the comprehensive coverage. But you have to remember to add all that other coverage back on. Cancel a duplicate subscription. So I talked about this already: HBO, Netflix, anything that you've got that somebody else in your household has. You don't need to be paying twice for that. Try to pay cash for daily items. Don't use your credit cards, especially if you are only making the minimum payment or you're reducing the payments that you are making. Conserve energy. So turn down the heat, get blankets out, wear sweaters. Don't use air conditioning when it starts to heat up. Combine errands with other people in your household so that you're saving gas. Cancel or suspend gym memberships. Look for free workout videos on YouTube. I have seen so many things on Facebook and Instagram about free workouts. Everybody's giving away a free workout, and they're hoping that you'll come back and pay for workouts later on. But if you have to eliminate or suspend your gym membership, but you still want to work out and stay healthy, which is really important, then look for free options. And there's also a lot of free internet service available. And there have also been um, mandates from state and federal government that internet service providers not turn off service during during the COVID-19 outbreak. So if you're having difficulty with your making payments to your internet service provider, contact them as well. Let's see, what can I do about monthly loan and credit card payments? We talked about this already, but again, find out what programs your credit cards and lenders have in place. Ask for forbearance on the loan. So ask them if you can put off making payments or if you can reduce the payment. With a mortgage payment, you can, instead of not making a mortgage payment at all, because again, the interest is going to accrue, you can pay the interest on those loans. You can pay the interest on your credit card loans, and that way at least you're not paying interest on interest when you start to make payments again. We talked about suspending car payments and about the automobile insurance. You can contact somebody like Educational Employees Credit Union. Worst case scenario, you can call them and check into low interest rate short-term loans as an alternative to using a high-cost credit card. And then Lori talked about this on Tuesday, but there are jobs out there. Many retailers and takeout fast food businesses are hiring because they've seen a dramatic increase in the customers coming into their stores. You know, the other thing I might mention at this time is as a strategy to reduce spending is don't hoard. I'm really amazed at how people are hoarding items like toilet paper and paper towels, and they're going in and buying up more than what they would normally use of their normal shopping items like milk, eggs, bread. There's really no need to hoard, and people are buying huge stockpiles of certain items. They're paying more for these items. They're probably charging it on a credit card that's close to being maxed out, and it just doesn't make sense. Buy what you need for a week or for 2 weeks. Those items will all be they'll all be on the shelves when you go back in the next time. You may have to wait a couple of days or go earlier in the morning. But we're starting to see shelves be more reliable in stocking goods. So don't hoard. It's expensive to do that. And what are you going to do with 200 rolls of toilet paper when this is all over? So what do you do to prepare for the next event? Because it seems like these events are coming closer together. And last time it was an economic downturn caused by the housing, the blow up in the housing market, and that was a prolonged recession. I didn't think we'd see something like this again for several years. I tell my investment students, always be prepared, because in their lifetime, we would have another crash, or not, this isn't technically a crash, but another, severe reduction in the value of stocks and other investment sorts of instruments. So we've seen the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500 drop by 30%. And so these actually present opportunities. I didn't think we'd see a hit like this to the economy, or a 30% drop in the stock market in such a short period of time so soon. So I think we will probably see these types of events occurring more frequently now. And so you have to be prepared. Financial planners suggest saving at least 20% of your take-home income while spending at most 30% on discretionary items. So discretionary items are things that you're not contractually obligated to pay. So you have to pay your rent, have to pay your mortgage. Those are fixed expenses. But on discretionary items like going out to dinner, um, buying clothes, going on expensive vacations, you don't have to do those things. You can cut back. That's the area where you can cut back and save the 20% of your take home pay. Create a budget and stick to it. Have 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in a rainy day account. My husband's not getting paid right now. If we didn't have at least that much in a rainy day account, we'd be in serious trouble. So luckily I practice what I preach, and we've got at least 6 months worth of living expenses set aside, so that when the economy turns down, we're able to make all our payments. Think about every dollar that you spend. What are the things you really need, and what are the things you just want? Smartphones, televisions, restaurant meals, all these things are luxuries. We can get by without them. We want them, but when you really think about it, a lot of these things are items that we can do without. So living within your means isn't just rhetoric. It's a way of guarding against times like these and being able to emerge from a period like this in good financial shape still. You should also prepare a balance sheet to track your debt and your assets so you know where you stand, especially on your debt. What are your, what loans are outstanding? How much credit card debt do you have? And if you do this, if you prepare a balance sheet and you prepare a budget and you stick to it, you'll be much better informed of your own financial position. And that's really the first step to being able to control your financial position. If you don't know how to do these things, Fresno City College offers a personal financial management course. Uh, we teach it in both the fall semester and the spring semester, and this summer there's going to be an online version. It's not normally offered during the summer, but this summer we're going to be doing it to help students who want to be prepared for the next downturn, and to also help students recover from the current situation. So what are the important takeaways from this? You can prepare yourself and your family to be ready for adverse economic events. So spend less than you earn, have that 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in a rainy day account, and then take advantage of employer-sponsored savings programs and retirement plans. The second thing I would say that you should take away from this event is don't rely on the government to provide all your needs. Right now, they've passed a lot of legislation. They have put some pressure on certain industries to give breaks to consumers, but you can't always count on that. In the last economic downturn back in 2008, 2009, banks weren't in as healthy a position as they are now. They wouldn't have been able to do this. Many manufacturers and retailers were not in the position that they're in now. So you can't always rely on the government to pass the legislation that you need. You can't always rely on industry to be there. So the only person you really can rely on is yourself, but you have to plan for that. So, so that's an important takeaway. You have control, but you have to grab that control and use it to prepare for the future. Here are some important websites. So I'm sure we're going to make this presentation available, but all of these websites will either, one, lead you to additional websites that, they're articles, and so they have additional websites in them with further information. Some of these, for instance, the Edmunds.com, this lists all of the car loan, all of the lenders that are provided by all the lenders like GMAC. General Motors has a finance company, Ford has a finance company, BMW has a finance company. So this is a list of all those manufacturer-related finance companies that have programs already in place. This Forbes, this link right here that Forbes updates routinely, is frequently asked questions to for student loans. So this is incredible detail on the types of student loans that qualify and how you go about um, getting deferments. So all of these have additional, more detailed information about how you can take advantage of programs that are available to help you. And then this last one, they've got an app for all this. So this is an app that exists. You can go on, any of the, the Apple's app site. It's available on other types of cell phones as well. But this is extremely comprehensive. It's not just for the United States. In fact, it's for foreign countries as well. It's divided by category. So there's a specific category for financial information. And within that one category, they have, I couldn't tell you how many resources that are listed there. So this is a really valuable tool. And if you find a resource that's not listed, you can add that resource. You'll send information to the managers of the app, and if it's a legitimate source, they'll post it as well. So one of the ones I sent in was for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is an agency of the U.S. government. They also have a website, and I think I included it, in fact, back in here. Oh, consumerfinance.gov they have a special page devoted to coronavirus resources. And so that's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau of the U.S. government, a great web source. All of these are great. So hopefully we'll be able to make this presentation available, and you'll get the websites, because I really think that's probably the most valuable part of the whole presentation, is your ability to continue to learn and to find the things that specifically relate to you. So that is all I have.